People look at their tech stocks, their crypto portfolios, and startup valuations, and they feel incredibly rich right now. But that feeling of wealth is an illusion, and right now, the foundation holding it up is starting to crack. To understand why, we have to look at a metric called the wealth-to-money ratio. In the United States today, perceived wealth outweighs actual physical money by 8.5 to 1. In the stock market alone, that ratio is 3 to 1. If you look back through history, those numbers are a massive red flag. The last time the gap between on-paper wealth and actual money was this extreme, it was the late 1920s, right before the stock market crash of 1929. This chart shows the NASDAQ composite around the year 2000. This is the only other time we've seen this exact ratio peak. The steep drop-off here marks the burst of the dot-com bubble. The mechanical problem is simple. Wealth is just a perceived valuation. Money is what actually settles a transaction. If a panic triggers and everyone simultaneously tries to convert their paper wealth into cash to spend or pay taxes, the system collapses. The actual money simply doesn't exist to pay everyone out. Ray Dalio points out a crucial distinction. Wealth is just what people agree something is worth on paper, like valuing a new tech startup at $1 billion. Money is the physical mechanism you actually use to buy groceries or settle a debt. The extreme disconnect we see today traces back to August 1971. That was the moment President Richard Nixon officially severed the US dollar from the gold standard, ending the government's obligation to back paper cash with physical gold. Post-1971, fiat money transformed into a debt instrument, a government promise to deliver value in the future rather than a claim on a physical asset today. Since modern money is inherently a debt instrument, holding a lot of cash means you are holding on to someone else's liability. When the global debt cycle turns and defaults start rolling in, that cash leaves you highly exposed. Financial survival depends on reading the 5 historical forces that drive the global machine: debt, internal politics, the world order, climate, and technology. The multilateral world order established in 1945 is splintering. As major powers bypass global rules in favor of national self-interest, institutions like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization are becoming secondary to raw power dynamics. We have entered a reality dominated by power struggles. Superpowers like the US and China are actively identifying their economic vulnerabilities and intentionally breaking their interdependencies to create leverage and squeeze each other's growth. The primary battleground for this new world order is technology. The nation that controls the production of advanced microchips and the application of artificial intelligence will likely dictate the global economy for decades. In a climate where superpowers are actively weaponizing trade and capital, smart investors look elsewhere. The true growth potential lies in nations that operate completely outside this direct friction. Right now, India stands out as the ultimate growth anomaly. According to Dalio's models, it holds the absolute best leading indicators for economic expansion over the next 10 years. This projection is driven by clear macroeconomic fundamentals. India combines a massive, highly talented workforce with a very low national debt burden. And crucially, they are rapidly building out the physical and digital infrastructure needed to support a booming economy. Economically speaking, India's current developmental stage and upward trajectory closely mirror where China was about 30 years ago. We are seeing a structural shift. The sweeping economic reforms and infrastructure pushes happening under Prime Minister Narendra Modi mirror the foundational market transitions we saw in China's past. Specifically, Modi's role in opening up the economy and stimulating capital formation is acting very much like the policies of Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s and 90s. History shows a clear pattern here. Developing, neutral powers tend to prosper heavily during periods of global conflict, while warring nations drain their capital fighting each other in market share. So how do you translate this macro-level geopolitics into a personal strategy? How does an individual investor protect their savings against a debt-heavy fiat system and global instability? Dalio suggests a specific defensive rule of thumb. Hold anywhere from 5 to 15% of your portfolio in a universally recognized storehold of wealth, like physical gold.
The core mechanic is simple. Unlike fiat, gold is an independent asset, not a liability on someone else's balance sheet. People often compare this to Bitcoin, but Bitcoin remains highly vulnerable. Governments can track transactions, regulate exchanges, and directly interfere with the network. True financial defense means holding assets that no central authority can print into oblivion, track through a database, or easily confiscate when the massive debt bubble finally bursts. But defense only preserves what you already have. If you are young, starting from scratch, and have just $100 to your name, what is the best offensive move on the board? Your first instinct might be to open a brokerage account, buy some fractional shares of a tech company, or gamble on leverage trades. But treating the market like a casino is the wrong move for your initial capital. Dalio's advice is much more direct. Take that $100 and invest it entirely in yourself. Use it to buy a book, take a course, or build a tiny, low-risk business. Your goal is to learn the underlying cause and effect mechanics of how money actually moves. Internalizing the cause and effect mechanics of the global board allows an investor to identify historical cycles and play the game with a persistent edge.